Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session on identify C2C malware in the face of threats like SolarWinds Orion attack. This is your moderator Ashwini Kumar. I would like to introduce us today and today's presenters. SISA is a global security specialist serving across a wide range of industries with a footprint in more than 35 countries. SISA has a unique expertise in payment security domain and forensic investigation. Maintaining a robust security posture is possible with SISA's exceptional set of offerings like SISA's MDR. SISA's MDR, SISA's MDR service is driven based on the vast forensic expertise which SISA have gained over the past 8 years, built on DHI algorithm, which continuously reviews security events to decrease the dwell time of a threat actor. So introducing today's presenter, Renju Verghese. Renju Verghese is a Vice President Delivery at SISA. He is an authorized PCI qualified security assessor from PCI SSC. He has experience of handling information security assessments for leading banks, third-party processors, IT BPOs, and payment gateways. Being one of the core PCI forensic investigators, Renju has been one of the lead investigators for large payment data breach. He is one of the key product owners of SISA EOT, a patent pending MDR solution that SISA has developed for payment infrastructure. Some of his key speaking engagements are part of threat hunting and incident response workshop, that is CPIDR in Mumbai and Singapore. He was a speaker at CXO event in Bahrain for SISA's top 5 learnings. He was also a speaker for Cybersecurity Summit in 2018. About Yogesh Patel. Yogesh Patel is an authorized core PCI forensic investigator. He has led many PFI investigations across Asia Pacific, EMEA, and USA region. His many accomplishments, including a PCI qualified security assessor, a QSA, PCI PIN QPA, and Visa security assessor. He has conducted assessments, certifications, audit, and forensic investigation in more than 18 countries. Some of his key speaking engagements are at PCI SSC community meetings at Europe and India, at ISACA chapters like Melbourne, Bahrain, and UAE. He has also been a speaker at CXO Connect event in Dubai for SISA Top 5 Learnings. Few housekeeping items for the webinar. Today's webinar would last for 60 minutes, including Q&A sessions for 15 minutes. All the attendees will be muted to enable speaker to present without any interruption. This webinar will be recorded and uploaded in the webinar section of SISA's website. So agenda for today's session are understanding SolarWinds breach, the supply chain cyber attack, linking SolarWinds breach to MITRE framework, including C2C malware with threat hunting, and further we'll be taking questions and further interactions. All the best, Yogesh. Over to you.
Thanks, Ashwini. Let's first have a look at the SolarWinds attack. On December 8, FireEye had notified about unauthorized access of FireEye Red Team tools. Post this, on their further investigation, on 13 December, they had actually discovered a supply chain attack using Trojanized or SolarWinds Orion on business software update in order to distribute the malware. FireEye had termed this particular backdoor as sunburst malware. SolarWinds had confirmed about the incident on same day. So in this particular attack, basically, SolarWinds has confirmed that Orion platform software built from 2019.4 till 2020.2 were affected with no hotfixes. And also a version of 2020.2 hotfix 1 was affected by this particular malware. So let's have understanding of what is supply chain attack. Supply chain attack is an attack wherein less secure element such as a vendor or tool which is used by most of the enterprise is affected, or it's compromised in order to gain access to their customers' environment. Like in this particular scenario, the SolarWinds Orion tool was basically compromised by intruder, and a malicious DLL was injected in their, or say malicious code was injected in their code base. So when the final tool was built and distributed to its client, the intruder ultimately got access of their client environment. So approximately 18,000 customers had installed this particular compromised version, and the time frame which was released as of now, based on the advisory by SolarWinds, was between March till May 2020. However, if we see the notification from FireEye, they are detecting the attack from, say, October 19 onwards. So that is the first initial time frame which they have detected as of now, but the investigation is still ongoing. The giants like Intel, Cisco, Microsoft, VMware, various government agencies, etc., has confirmed the breach. These agencies were using actually the SolarWinds tool, which was actually compromised. On December 14th, with the help of Microsoft, GoDaddy, and FireEye, they have created a kill switch for Sunburst malware. That was by taking down the domain name used for communication. That is the initial C2C communication. It was taken down. Let's understand the attack flow. So here first, the intruder compromised SolarWinds environment and have performed unauthorized modification in their source code. It is still not clear on how or what access they was having in the SolarWinds environment, but ultimately they were able to add the malicious code in their binaries, and the binaries was actually signed by SolarWinds digital signatures, code signing certificates, and was published by SolarWinds as part of their normal updates. So when these updates was pushed, these were basically pushed by SolarWinds website official channels itself. It was not through any other malicious channel. It was pushed through official channel, and the piece of malware was as it was in their code. It was part of the release. So once these entities or the customers of SolarWinds have deployed this update, the malware was delivered to their environment, and it was residing on their SolarWinds server. So as you can see here, the attacker has basically added this particular DLL, which is called as SolarWinds Orion core business layer.dll. This was binded in their main product and was sent by an update to the each and every customers. So when the customer deployed it, this particular DLL or the malicious code got executed as part of the update, and it maintained the persistence. When we talk about persistence mechanism, it had multiple say capabilities of detecting the processes, various method for evasion, or say evasion techniques, which was deployed in this particular piece of code. So basically, it got activated as per the forums or various advisories after 12 to 14 days. And once it was activated, it would communicate back to the command and control server by gaining the initial information about the environment. It included the domain which is used by the machine which was on which it was deployed, the user account name, etc. So during this information gathering and initial communication, so the initial communication channel was through ASVS.vmcloud.com. So that is the initial domain, or say command and control domain, where it communicated, and which sent back a secondary C2 channel using which the further attack was carried out. So in this particular slide, you can see that how the initial attack, or it's an initial compromise, has occurred. As C2 was established, the intruder was then able to control the server completely and perform the lateral movements from that particular system to other systems using various techniques or tools. It might depend upon the environment to environment on what type of malwares was deployed back during the last phase when it interacted to the secondary C2 channel. In few of the cases which are reported as of now, we are seeing that teardrop malware was deployed along with other malwares as well for lateral movements. Talking about IOCs, the main domain was avsvmcloud.com. This particular domain was taken down with the help of Microsoft, GoDaddy, and FireEye. They have renamed changed the IP resolution to the Microsoft IP, and as per the malicious code which was injected, if the domain belongs to Microsoft, it was supposed to self-destruct and does not. It was supposed to terminate the process, so that systems won't be infected. Therefore, this was done, and the domain was updated on 14th of December. The other domains are listed here, like Zupertech, panhardware.com, etc. In the recent, we have also identified, or got the list of other domains like Teardrop malware was deployed using evrsystems.com and infinitysoftwares.com. The various beacons was cubecloud.com and solartrackingsystems.net, etc. This is not an exhaustive list, as this incident is still ongoing and the investigation is still in progress. We don't have the complete list as of now, and we should keep a list on the current or say new IOCs which emerges. Talking about supply chain attacks, this is not the first supply chain attacks which has occurred. Previously, in 2017, we have also seen a similar kind of attack when a popular tool which was used for say cleaner activity for cleaning unwanted files, which is say temporary files, etc. The CC cleaner tool, basically, that was also affected by CC backdoor malware. In which the intruder was able to steal the information and download other malwares on the victim system, basically, on which this particular tool was deployed. The end result of this was around 2.2 million downloads of infected installation. That means around roughly about approximately 2.27 million users was infected by this particular malware. The signed version was available for version 5.33. Similarly, the another malware was NotPetya. This is also a malware which was added in a tax accounting software in 2017. The similar thing, so using this, the intruder was able to gain access of the environment and then perform further attacks. And similarly, the Double Dragon malware, this was also added in the product to establish the foothold and inject the malicious code and distribute, malwares. Going forward, I would like to hand it over to Renju.
Hey, thanks, Yogesh. Sure, great. So, thanks, Ashwini, Yogesh, for that initial slides. So, as we talked about the malwares part of it, I'm sure that there are lots and lots of details about coming out about the Sunburst malware part of it. But what we believe is that it's just a tip of the iceberg, because if you have actually analyzed the attackers part of it, they definitely could have created not only just one backdoor, but definitely could have created multiple backdoors. Now, based on our forensic analysis and the various investigations that we have carried out for the past few years, we have observed that once the intruder gains a control over the network, then definitely they will create a multiple entry points, so that at later point of time they can always get into the network part of it. Now, from what the FireEye and other guys have analyzed, the initial backdoor took around 14 days to start communication to the C2C server, that is the command and control server. But we believe that there might be multiple such kind of deployments could have carried out uh, because because SolarWinds as a Orion part of it, you have access to your multiple network components, because it's more of a network management system. So you the SolarWinds did have admin access to quite a lot of your other servers. So we believe that there could have been created multiple backdoors, and the actual effect of the SolarWinds breach or this particular sunburst will come maybe over a period of next 6 months or so. So that's the reason of this webinar, where our idea is basically explain on how we can do hunt the network to ensure that even if there are any other malwares or any other backdoors which has been deployed, can we able to identify the same. So that's what we're trying to achieve through today's webinar. So to get kick started, let me explain on what is the MITRE attack framework. Sure. Sure. So MITRE attack framework is nothing but it's a globally it's a global knowledge base of the various the tactics and techniques of the various adversaries. It's basically been created to explain the steps which an adversary basically takes for the same. So in this case of Sunburst, everyone says that it's Russia because definitely it's a state-sponsored it's a state-sponsored group, because otherwise the sophistication and the way they have carried it out definitely talks about a lot of capabilities at the backend side of it. So the MITRE framework is basically it's a global knowledge base of how these adversaries uh, activate, or how these adversaries function, so that we'll be able to group them into the various categories. So in the MITRE attack framework, we do have it's divided into two. One is for the pre-attack, and the other is the attack for the enterprise part of it. Now, in the pre-attack, basically what they do is it's basically the recon and weaponization. So if you want to analyze it here, the attack group definitely have spent enough time. They definitely have compromised the SolarWinds big time, because the SolarWinds patch which was released, it was signed. So basically, the attack group had complete access to SolarWinds, so that they were able to take control of the development activities, or able to inject the malicious code into one of their releases, and ensure that that particular patch was signed. So it talks about how in depth they went ahead within SolarWinds. So the weaponization is basically of the MITRE attack framework is where they injected that particular malware, or basically the backdoor onto the SolarWinds part of it. Now, then we have, so in the 7 steps of the MITRE framework, we have the recon and the weaponization part of it. Then we have the delivery, exploit, control, execute, and maintain cycle. I'm not going in detail. There are quite a lot of the frameworks part of it. But what emphasis I like to put across is that if you just sure. So if you want to link the MITRE attack to the sunburst, basically we have the first is this supply chain attack where the attacker inserted the malicious code part of it, so which can be basically linked to your reconnaissance and the weaponization part of it. So here they've basically weaponized the SolarWinds Orion patch for the backdoor. Now, second is the deployment, that is more than 18,000 organization downloading the SolarWinds patch from the time period April to October, and so they basically gets compromised by the malicious patch part of it. So when linked to MITRE attack framework, it's basically the delivery part of it and basically exploiting the same. Now, when it starts communicating it out to the C2C server after that basic analysis part of it, it has definitely created quite a lot of defensive evasion actions, had done quite a lot of recon and at C2C communication initiation part of it, which basically, if you want to link it to MITRE attack framework, can be is basically the control, execute, and the maintain channel perspective. So basically, they are able to take the control of that particular network with this C2 communication and able to execute any other commands or any other points which they want. And finally is the action on the objective part of it. Now, with respect to say the FireEye, the action on objective was the intruder basically took access to their red teaming tools. Now, with respect to action objective for the US Treasury Department, we currently don't know what is the final action objective, nor we are aware about what has been their action objective with, say, respect to Cisco or Microsoft as well. So 18,000 organizations, the intruders still have enough time to initiate that particular action objective part of it. So even if the Microsoft and FireEye took out the, with help of GoDaddy, took out that particular domain, it basically stops the initial compromise part of it. But right now, if the organization has already downloaded this particular SolarWinds patch, I am sure that there could have been multiple backdoors being created, which in effect will lead to a lot of action objective down the period. Now, why we are emphasizing the MITRE attack framework is that what the SolarWinds was is nothing but just a delivery channel perspective. Right now, this delivery channel can be anything. It can be, in this case of SolarWinds, it was the SolarWinds patch. It can be your phishing email. It can be a web app attack which has basically compromised the web server and deployment of a web shell. It can be the old malware, the malware on a USB part of it. So why they emphasize is that during the pandemic period, during the work from period, we did had quite a lot of investigations, and we believe that based on the number of cases that both PFI and IFI case that we are getting, we believe that is just a start of the iceberg, because there definitely has been quite a lot of these kind of compromise, and they're just waiting for all the users to get back to office before exploiting the office networks and the servers and taking the action on objective. Now the action on objective might be taking your credit card informations or other information, or it can be anything. So if you want to say the action objective for SolarWinds from that initial compromise was basically taking care of taking hold of their source code and injecting the backdoor into their code itself. Similarly, we have done quite a lot of PFI investigations where the intruder has deployed the backdoors or those malicious code within the original code itself. So even when they reverted back with a backup, the backup still was compromised with the malware part of it. So just deploying security controls won't stop the intruder. If that was the case, then SolarWinds, FireEye, US Treasury, Cisco could not have been breached, because these are the big names of security, and I'm sure that they could have deployed all the latest and the advanced security tools for both prevention and detection part of it. So this all of it just opened our eyes, saying that we cannot just rely on our certifications, that we are PCDS certified or ISO certified. I have deployed, say, this AV solutions. I have deployed this firewall, this IPS. I deployed this threat hunt, say, SIM solutions, and assume that we are safe and secure. So this was just showed us that this all of it just showed that that's more of a myth, because deploying security controls won't stop the intruder at all. So what's the next step, right? Because we definitely have spent quite a lot of money in deploying all the security solutions, but still I have been getting compromised. So what steps can we take to ensure that we are protected? So from our entire forensics investigation experience, what we believe is one of the most important layers that you need to get or implement within your entire security framework is the threat hunting concept or threat hunting activity. I'm not saying that you should not go ahead and deploy the security solutions. You definitely need to have all the security solutions in place. And on top of it, like more like the icing on top of our Christmas cake, we need to do threat hunting activity. Right now, what is threat hunting? Threat hunting is basically nothing but a proactive and iterative searching through your entire network to detect whether there are any breaches or compromise that has happened. Okay, threat hunting is not just getting a few alerts part of it and saying that, hey, I got an alert, so we just need to take action. Threat hunting is basically goes beyond the say the normal SIM activity, but it basically just goes through your logs and your network in detail on 24/7 basis to ensure that there are no breaches part of it, or there are no malwares or these kind of C2C communications part of it. Why threat hunting is really important is based on our forensics investigation, we have observed is that the time frame from which when a attacker or intruder is able to compromise. So in this case of compromise, this was basically SolarWinds, the patch update, or it might be a phishing attack which was successful. So from the time that initial compromise happened and the time frame till the action objective is taken. So action objective is like taking your card information or taking off your data set. So during that time is called the dwell time, right? That is the time from the initial compromise and the time frame when their actually taking the final output is called the dwell time. Now, based on our investigation, this dwell time is around 70 to 80 days. Last year in 2019, it was around 120 plus, but in 2020 it has been reduced thanks to all the threat hunting and the advanced security solutions that we have. But it's still around 70 to 80 days the dwell time. Now, from what we're stating is that we need to ensure that we have a comprehensive threat hunting practice, so that we can able to identify any of these compromise points. Even if you identify within 24 hours, it's good enough, right? Because from all our investigations in the for the last 8 to 9 years, the fastest action objective that we are observed is around 6 days. Why 6 days? Because it was a re-attack or re-compromise of the same network. So we were doing the second PFI investigation. So the attacker had already knew where the data was lying, and they just went ahead and took the data out. So that was around 6 to 7 days. And even if you're going to consider ransomware attack, these days the ransomware doesn't get they just get started encrypting. The intruder basically creates particular backdoor, just runs through your entire network, identify which is the most important server to encrypt, and then go ahead and encrypt those servers or databases. They know that they don't get anything, any ransom if they're just going to encrypt a laptop. So they want to ensure that they encrypt your critical asset, so that the entity is forced to pay the ransomware, sorry, pay the ransom for getting the decryption keys. So definitely, the time frame which an intruder takes for the final action objective is definitely more than 4 to 5 days, part of it. So as part of threat hunting, as can we do a continuous threat hunting activity and able to identify any of the compromise within 12 to 24 hours, I think we do have a very good threat hunting practice in place, right? Now, threat hunting can be carried out at various multiple layers. So in this particular webinar, we'll mainly focus on threat hunting for on how to identify any of the C2C communications, because that was very clear with respect to the SolarWinds breach or the Sunburst malware. Now, what is C2C? C2C is nothing but the command and control traffic. It's basically the traffic which is the malware sends out after the exploitation is being carried out. The C2C, the C2 traffic is very, very important from the attacker perspective, is that it allows the attacker to maintain the complete control of the network. So if you want to take the example of the Sunburst or SolarWinds, if the from the initial for, let's say, take example of FireEye. Now, in case of FireEye, once with the initial deployment of that particular patch, the backdoor got created. Now, the backdoor didn't knew what action it has to perform. It just basically could have done few of the scanning or few of the initial activities and could have sent the data out. But but from the intruder perspective, they didn't have complete access. So they any of the backdoors, basically what they do is that they basically send that C2 communication out. Now, why the C2 communication goes out is basically it's a beacon request, so that the intruder will be able to take remote control of that particular system, and from that remote control they will be able to do a lateral movement of jumping from one server to other servers perspective. So so that's the reason why the C2 traffic is very, very important for from the intruder perspective. from the intruder perspective. So from a C2 traffic, we can definitely able to it is so with respect to C2 traffic, the C2 traffic will always get initiated from the internal systems to outside, because they don't come from outside to inside, because you definitely have our firewalls and IPS in place, which prevents those kind of traffic. So most of the C2 communications gets initiated from your internal network to your outside network. And one of the biggest actually heal for the C2 communication is that it needs to be on a persistent basis. So that is about the C2 traffic part of it. And we can easily able to identify we can basically do the threat hunting on these C2 traffic for identifying any of these communication. Now, what's the minimum log which is required for capturing any of the C2 communication? The most important is your net flow or your firewall traffic logs. So what is net flow? Net flow is nothing but your network traffic flow, which basically gives details like what is that particular traffic coming from, what is that particular source IP address, what is your destination IP address, what is the port number which has been used, and what is the bytes being transferred. Now, net flow is basically by Cisco, but irrespective of your firewall, all the firewalls do have the net flow equivalent traffic flow logs, which we can capture to do the analysis part of it. Now, from this net flow traffic, it basically you're able to only get your source IP and your destination IP address, right? So even if there is a C2 communication, in most cases, the C2 communications, they initiate communication over the domain name, right? So even if you take the sunburst indicator of compromise, you have identified that there are more than 10 or 20 domains which tries to communicate out. Now, why the malware do most of the communication using the domain names is that in a lot of environments, the outbound traffic could be restricted to specific ports like port 80, 443, which is HTTPS port, major 808443. Basically, these are the ports which are required for your internet browsing, and these are the ports on which most of the updates do happen. So in most of the organization, even though the inbound traffic will be totally denied, they could have allowed the outbound traffic to communicate over the HTTP and HTTPS port. So definitely the intruder do take control or do take advantage of these ports being open and start doing the communication part of it. Now, for doing that communication, most of the backdoors, they definitely use the DNS, that is domain name system. So domain name system is basically, it just gives you the IP address once you do a quick query. So for example, if you open your browser and just type google.com, your browser or the network doesn't know what is the IP address of Google, right? So basically, the browser will try communicating to a DNS server. It will pass on this particular domain saying that Google, and get the IP address of Google for the traffic to get routed to Google and go ahead for the various part of it. So which is a basic the internet traffic part of it. Now, from most of the C2 communication part of it, they basically try to excuse me. They basically overcomes as a user. So instead of user, you just assume that it's a system which is which has been say compromised with this particular communication, and it basically communicates over this specific say google.com or any of the domains they have, and I get the IP address part of it. Now, unfortunately, in most environments, we don't have the DNS logs because most of the organizations, we don't have the DNS logs, so or we don't enable DNS logs because it's definitely very heavy traffic. It takes quite a lot of resource and space, and is almost 99% of noise part of it. So most of the organization don't enable this DNS log part of it. So basically, from the NetFlow, what we can do is that we can do a reverse DNS lookup or the IP lookup for getting the domain name part of it. So basically, in the reverse DNS lookup, we just say, hey, from my NetFlow traffic, I have the IP address 74.125.142.147. Just give me which domain it belongs to. So you can definitely get, it will definitely revert back to saying that it's a google.com part of it. Also, you're able to get the domain which was accessed from your network from your proxy server logs as well. So this particular domain this domain name is very, very important for us to do threat hunting, because if you just get the IP address 74.125.142.147, you won't be able to understand what it is for, what it corresponds to, and the max you'll able to identify that this particular IP address belongs to, say, the US location. You won't get any other details apart from that. So the reverse lookup is definitely required for us to identify which domain it belongs to, and so that we can able to do the threat hunting activities. Now, let me just take a simple example. So let's assume that the system one is been compromised, and the system compromised by the sunburst, and it beacons the request to these two domains. We're just taking these two domains. It's basically the teardrop domain which the sunburst malware communicates. So for the example purpose, we just taken these two domains. That is airviewsystem.com and infinitysoftwares.com. So these are the domains which, as part of the reverse engineering of the sunburst, the security team have identified the domains which the sunburst malware do communicate part of it. Now, so this is just an example part of it. Okay. Now comes the threat hunting steps. Now, one of the first step of threat hunting is checking the randomness of the domain name. Why the randomness of the domain name is that most of the adversaries keep on changing the domain name part of it. A reason being that, say for example, if the air system and Infinity software is right now, let's assume that it gets identified, it gets blacklisted in all the AV solutions and other solutions. Definitely, from the intruder perspective, even if they compromise the network and if they use the same domain, then the AV solutions or the security solutions immediately identifies the same, right? Because it's already on the blacklisted part of it. So that's one of the reasons why the adversaries keep on changing the domain name, so that those domains doesn't get captured by your AVs and other security solutions part of it, right? Now, from an intruder or adversary perspective, they can't, what do you say, just use any domains, right? Because, say, for example, sysinfosec.com, if they have to, say, get sysinfosec.com, they definitely have to pay some fees and other payment part of it. But if let's assume that it is SISA123.789 abcd.com, then definitely those particular domains will not be taken by anyone, and intruders can able to register those domains for free part of it. So that's the reason why the intruders do randomly create quite a lot of names, so that they and update their malwares and their backdoors, so that the AV solutions or any of the security solutions doesn't identify the same. But we can definitely use those randomness part of it for identifying whether it is suspicious part of it. So we can use the random calculations. There is a very frequent underscore server.py Python script. It's a Python script which allows for high performance querying for identifying whether a particular string or a particular word is random or not. So if you just this particular Python script basically considers the dictionary algos and everything and determine whether this particular word is or has any links to or is similar to a dictionary word. Say, for example, in case of SISA, based on the word the SISA is spelled, even though SISA might not be a dictionary word, the algos will able to determine that SISA is not that random part of it. So that's the algo which is already there in that particular Python script. So what we can do is that once we are able to get the domain name from the by doing the DNS lookup, we can run this particular Python script to identify the randomness of the domain. And if the score is greater than 1, then we can determine that hey, this particular domain is malicious, and identify which system is communicating to that particular domain part of it. In our case, the RV system and Infinity Software was not that highly random, because Infinity Software is a dictionary word, and here the system is also a dictionary word perspective. So when we ran the names through the randomness score, the random score is 0.52. Only if the score is greater than 1, we need to identify the same. So this hunting step 1 definitely didn't identify the Ever system or infinitysoftwares.com, but in case of a lot of other set of malwares, it does immediately identify, because a lot of other malwares do use very highly randomized domain part of it, or if that particular malware do use the domain generation algorithm techniques, we will be able to identify using this hunting step 1. The hunting step 2 is basically the baby domains part of it. What is baby domain? Now, from the same front part of it, from an intruder, the intruder definitely needs to create new domains to evade the security solutions part of it. So let's say they take care of, they just register a new domain part of it. So why do we use the word baby? Because the uh, because the early the date is, that is whether if the domain is only say 6 months old or say 12 months old, then there is a highly suspicious that that particular domain could have been used for any of this malicious usage part of it. Why? Because let's assume that you are say sysinfosec. Now that sysinfosec.com has been registered around say 15 years back. But if you're going to consider the domain names, say RV system, it was basically created on April 2nd, 2018. And even if you consider the Infinity Softwares, it was just created on Jan 8, 2019 part of it. Now, even though the duration is more than 12 months, because this because like I mentioned, we believe that the SolarWinds would have been compromised much earlier perspective, and the intruder could have taken enough time to create the patch and this particular backdoor. So that's the reason why at that time these domains could have been created. But if you just analyze the domain, that is say infinitysoftware.com, it has definitely less than 24 months, and it will get detected part of it. Now, if it is a RV system, it's April 2018, which is more than 24 months, but we can definitely able to flag it off as well. Now, with respect to the phishing attempts part of it, if you use this particular threat hunting step, I can assure you that you will be able to identify a lot of phishing mails or phishing URLs, because whether it is red teaming or the intruder is creating a new phishing link, they basically are going to use a newly created domain perspective. So any domains which is say less than 1 year old or say 2 years old can basically get can be basically can be flagged for further analysis perspective. That's on hunting step 2. And the most critical hunting step is the newly observed domain access. What is newly observed domain? Now, if you want to observe your proxy server or your browsing traffic, what you will notice is that the intruder or your users definitely follows a set pattern, right? Say, for example, they go to google.com, they might go to, say, Gmail, they may go to, say, for cricket news, say, CricBus, for any other news, they may say to Reddit, for shopping, they may go to Amazon, they may go to Netflix. So, from a user perspective, the users definitely have a pattern, and it is very highly unlikely that the users do create or do go to a new site on a very random basis. So if you can just say get all your domains and maybe just run a small ML algo, which basically identifies that if it is a newly observed domain that has been accessed, and that particular domain has not been accessed by any of the users or any of your servers for the last 1 month to 6 months, you will definitely able to get quite a lot of or able to identify quite a lot of these C2C communication part of it. Now, if you can run it with your Alexa top 1 million domain list, sorry for that. Basically, if you can run it through the Alexa top 1 domain list, you'll able to. Let me just remove that 1 second. Yeah. Domain list, you'll definitely able to identify or able to shortlist those domains part of it. So Alexa top 1 million is basically the top 1 million domains which was accessed by the users with YouTube as number 1. So if you just able to get us a newly observed domain part of it and you just run that it is not part of the Alexa top 1 million part of it, you will definitely able to identify those C2C domains part of it. Now, in this particular case, all the domains which was accessed by the Sunburst malware was basically identified by FireEye using this one hunting technique. Because definitely, if you just try Mervi System or infinitysoftwares.com, nothing gets loaded up. So this hunting step 3 provides a very strong, comprehensive approach for identifying any kind of C2C communications or domains within your network perspective. So these are basically the 3 easy threat hunting steps which you can incorporate within your organizations for the threat hunting activities. Now, the question that everyone asks is that what should we do once we are able to identify the same, right? So let's say that I have identified that there is a domain name, say Infinity Software domain name that I've identified. What should be my next set of steps? So what should be my next action part of it? So for that, I'll just able to just show our tool part of it. So I can able to explain the threat hunting steps there. So this is basically our DML, which basically communicates or uses the same algos which we just talked about for identifying the MLs or the domains part of it. The first one is basically GeoIP communication part of it, which says that which all locations where the system is trying to communicate it out part of it. So, but I'll just go through the domain name analysis part of it. So, what it basically identifies is that it basically identifies which is your newly observed domain within the network, and basically runs it through the randomness, runs it through the Alexa top 1 million, and the baby domain part of it. And if this passes, then definitely the domain score changes so that we can definitely get a higher score perspective. Now here we have so from the threading steps, let's assume that we get this particular we basically get this particular step, right? Now we do have identified that there is a domain name that is 4579.1.70, which is communicating to say United States over domain risk of 39. Now, once you identify this particular step, the next step that you have to identify is basically go and check the system part of it. So in this particular scenario, I just went ahead and just said that for this particular destination.ip 45.79.170, which all systems are has communicated out. So I get the list of internal systems which is communicating it out. So I have my 10.100.0.1, which is most 78 communications part of it, and we have another 6 servers which had communicated out part of it. So there's something going there. Now, basically, so what I next did was that which port I just started communicating it out. So we identified that this port is 123, that is the NTP port, and we can definitely just say that okay, because it might be the 123 is an NTP port, so it might be an NTP communication, and this basically gives the timeline of when that particular communications has happened over a period of the last 1 month. So from a threat hunting perspective, what we need to analyze is that for each of these kind of domains that has been identified, we need to go ahead and analyze what was the traffic being generated. Now, if you analyze the actual log, we basically identifies that there is a destination IP 45.170. It is a firewall rule, and the firewall has basically denied this particular traffic part of it. So, which basically identifies that that's good enough. Now, this is the entire traffic where the destination IP is 45.170, and we can do a lot of say the aggregation, whether you want to aggregation using say destination port, or you want to aggregate using the destination IP, or the status part of it. We'll able to do that, and so we'll get so there's a lot of analysis which needs to be carried out. So here we identified that for event status we have deny and also allow part of it. Now we need to see that which all IPs has allow. So we can go ahead and create a new status filter, that is event status allowed. And I want to analyze that okay, there's one system that is 10.0.100.0.1 which has basically has communicated to this particular port part of it. Now in this particular scenario, it was definitely a NTP port 123 port, so we can just assume that it might be false positive because it definitely communicating to a NTP server perspective. So in that perspective, perspective, this is perfectly fine, right? So from the hunting perspective, once you identify those domains, we need to analyze what is the communication is happening, and go ahead and do a more the in-depth analysis of why this particular port or why this communication is happening per se. Now, once this particular once you confirm that there is something really suspicious, then the next set of activities is definitely to initiate that incident response by doing a quick IR analysis, incident response analysis of the system memory. Why the IR is required is to confirm that it is not a completely what do you say? Uh, it's we need to basically get more details, right? So uh, if you confirm that hey, there is a it talks on a different port, and if you feel that is suspicious part of it, then we need to take more actions on the IR part to say that which application has done that particular communication, and where is the particular application getting loaded and everything. So only through this IR activity we'll be able to identify that if this is a particular malware or not part of it. So what we are concluding is that definitely the threatening we're concluding is that definitely just deploying all the security solutions will not safeguard the organization, because most of the intruders these days do consider quite a lot of evasive techniques for uh, uh, for compromising the network and deploying those malwares, which basically evades your AVs and everything. So we basically need to ensure that you have implement a threat hunting process and a threat hunting team to threaten threat hunt your entire logs for identifying any of the C2 communication or any of these kind of malwares part of it, right? So the threat hunting, what we just showed is basically threat hunting using the domain logs part of it. So this way, any of the communications by any of the C2 backdoors will be able to identify. And once you identify that communication, then you definitely needs to go and do more in-depth analysis of the traffic, and based on your suspicious, initiate your IR activity for the same. So that's from our side, team, and we are open for questions.
Thank you, Renju, for this. Thank you, Renju and Yogesh, for the informative session and highlighting the threat hunting steps. It's time for the attendees to ask questions. Attendees requested to put your questions in the question box. We have received one question from Deepa. Just a minute. So the question is, can you suggest if self-signed certificate or authorized SSL certificate needs to be implemented?
So, like I mentioned, even if you deploy these certificates, so the SolarWinds was a typical case where the patch was signed by the SolarWinds certificate, which was provided by Symantec, right? So even if you sign it off, the security solutions can only provide us one level. So apart from that, the intruders these days are much capable to evade any of those solutions that you deploy. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't deploy these solutions, but the solutions will not just stops you from the intruder part of it.
Thanks, Renju. So let's wait for another 30 seconds. We'll wait for the questions. If we have no questions, then probably we'll wrap up the session. In case if anyone has any questions post the session, please feel free to reach out to us, and our technical team would be helping with the answers. So we have a question from Ray. How do you know if your data is at risk from a SolarWinds hack?
So definitely, like we mentioned, we have the IOCs packs part of it. So till now, these are the list of IOCs that is there. So if you're able to check whether any of these IOCs are within your network, then you will able to know, you'll able to identify that you have been breached by the SolarWinds part of it. So these are the current set of IOCs. So only IOC is nothing but indicator of compromise. So from these indicator of compromise, maybe you can analyze your the past 1 month or 2 months traffic logs and identify whether any of those communications happened. And if yes, then there is a very high chance that you have been compromised by the SolarWinds breach.
Thanks, Ranju. We have another question from Ray. How do you know if our network is infected with malware after SolarWinds hack?
Again, the same thing. We need to definitely do the threat hunting activities based on these IOCs to identify whether your has been breached, and definitely needs to do the same. So just running your AV solutions antivirus scan and doing a deep scan will not suffice, because the lot of backdoors will be lying down, and these backdoors will be might be running in the registry, will be running in the startup files, and will be running a dormant state. So doing a quick scan will not able to detect all your malwares at this point of time. You definitely needs to do a continuous threat hunting on the traffic logs for identifying these C2 communication, because only now a lot of organizations are identifying that, hey, there has been a breach in my network part of it, and they're able to identify, and IOCs are differing. So the IOC that we are just showing is just the IOCs that we have identified till date. Now, as most of the organizations keeps on analyzing it, these IOCs keeps on increasing. So only the threat hunting is the only way we can able to identify, because all other mechanisms, the malware is able to evade all the other security solutions currently in place.
Thanks, Penju. We have a question from Puneet Sharma. Is it possible to get information on such actors and techniques beforehand using threat intel from black market or dark web?
Now, definitely, that's the reason why we have our research team now. So one of the main objective of our research team is to go ahead and identify those threat factors and IOCs and update our threat intel, so that apart from the threat hunting steps, we'll able to our threat intel engine is able to identify the same and trigger it off. So that's the reason why we created the research team, basically focused on identifying these IOCs part of it.
Thanks, Penju. Another question from Shanti. What would be the potential impact if the stolen red team tools are exposed to public?
So we don't know, right? It can lead to anything. So if you remember the ransomware 2 years back, I'm not getting the ransomware name. It was basically was exploiting that Windows assembly vulnerability, which was mainly was used by the US agencies for hacking into various organization and networks part of it. So from the red team, the tool techniques part of it, it's just not one tool, is basically techniques and everything, so they can combine it with any other malwares and able to launch another set of ransomwares or another set of attacks part of it. So here what we're taking is that the journey has just got started for the sunburst. So it's similar to the COVID part of it. So there is a link which is running which says that COVID was just starting to warm up in the year 2020, and thanks to the UK new variant, 2021 is going to be even worse. So similarly, what we just identify from the sunburst part of it might be just the tip of the iceberg, and it can expand into anything and anything and everything. Right now, we can just give a very high level statement right now. So that's the reason why this threat hunting steps is very, very important, because irrespective of the delivery channel of how your systems gets infected, using these threat hunting steps, we'll definitely be able to identify and able to detect some of those ransomwares or any of those C2C communication part of it. So just security solutions will not 100% provide you.
Thank you, Renju. We have one question from Jignesh Rana. Is Google was down on 14 December because of this impact?
From Google RCA, it was not due to the same. It was mainly due to, I think, storage issue. That's what Google has released as part their RCA part of it. So that's what we need to believe right now, right? So may or may not be, not 100% sure. And Google has not come back right now stating that they have been affected by this sunburst. Cisco has, Microsoft has, the US various departments has, but as per my knowledge, Google hasn't till now. Yogesh?
That's correct, Ranju. So far, Google has not come up with this one.
Thanks, Renju and Yogesh. We have last question from Chitti Babu. How to build a robust supply risk management program, and does SISA help us?
So the question is remains the same, right? So we just need to trust the vendors that provides a particular patch perspective, and believe that ensure that the vendors have deployed necessary security controls for safeguarding their network part of it. From the supply chain perspective, like so clearly I mentioned earlier, is that most of the organizations or most of the security guys are focusing quite a lot on the security solutions and saying that, hey, by deploying the security solutions, I'll be safeguarding my network. Now, based on all our experience of conducting forensic analysis, that's actually not 100%, because a lot of these the adversaries these days can easily evade lot of security solutions in place. So SolarWinds was a typical example. Now SolarWinds is not a small company; it's a huge one. It does definitely had a lot of security controls and processes. They also produce some of the security products as well, right? So what we're stating is that delivery, if you focus on the security controls only, then what happens is these things do keeps on repeating. The only one of the ways we can able to identify, because we believe, is that how much controls we put in place, you can only achieve 99% of security, and you definitely have that 1% risk that you always carry. And from an intruder perspective, they only need that 1% to exploit. So we definitely need a monitoring and a hunting process to ensure that or able to detect that your system has been compromised. Because if you're saying that I can put all these controls to ensure that I can prevent a compromise, then we will never achieve that. So definitely we can work together to have a very good say controls and what points to be considered for the supply chain and everything. We can define it, but end of the day it will be just controls, and the SolarWinds has clearly shown that the intruders are capable to evade lot of our set of controls in play part of it. So that's what we say, but we can definitely help you out there. Sure. So as we are already 15 minutes over the time, thank you for attending the webinar part of it. Please do reach out either over LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. You can reach out and you can drop a message or mail to us, and we'll definitely revert back. Please do connect us over LinkedIn so that we'll be able to take it up as well. With that, thank you for attending the webinar, and stay cautious as well, and stay safe. Bye.
Thanks, Benjamin, Yogesh. This was a wonderful session. To all attendees, if you want to download the latest cybersecurity advisory we have released on the current and on the current news, feel free to download or reach out to us for the PDF copy. Thank you.